This is one of our wartime reunions we're doing to mark the anniversary of the start of the Second World War. It features a group of women who, until recently, had been largely forgotten.
The Flying Nightingales were air ambulance nurses whose job was to evacuate injured Allied soldiers.
Angelica Bell went to meet two women who risked their lives to bring some of our wounded soldiers home.
June the 6th, 1944, 132,000 men landed on the beaches of Normandy. Their mission? To liberate France from German occupation. Known as D-Day, in the intense fighting that followed, there were over 10,000 casualties. Many needed to be evacuated for urgent medical treatment. Within days, the Royal Engineers had bulldozed makeshift airstrips in the fields of Normandy, and planes flew in to collect the wounded. On each Dakota went one female air ambulance orderly. They were dubbed Flying Nightingales. Lillian and Elsie are two of only 6 surviving Flying Nightingales. Today they're going to go back aboard a Dakota for the first time since the war. The Nightingales were the very first women ever sent to combat zones. Lillian, then aged 20, and Elsie, who was 23, were in danger on every flight. Because the planes carried supplies on the way out to France, they couldn't be marked with a Red Cross on the way back. That made them legitimate targets.
We were fair play because we had no Red Cross or nothing. We were Dakotas, we could have been carrying freight back.
So you couldn't use your parachute?
You had to stay with the patients at all costs.
Oh, really? So
if you got shot down,
you just had to stay with them?
You had to go with them.
Despite their previous experience, little prepared them for what they were to face on the front line.
Well, my first flight, I landed at the edge of a cornfield. We got shelled, my plane, the first time I landed.
But that must have been quite scary.
It was terrifying.
My first trip is that I burst a tyre on landing. Me and Rita Holt, she's dead, God bless her. We were missing in France. Our parents had telegrams to say we were missing, and then it came back with another air cruise when I burst a tyre on London.
So your parents must have been pleased to see you when you came back.
Yeah, they were. I met Rita up when we were in, when we had the association. She was in a wheelchair then.
I know that Rita. I was quite friendly with her, but she came quite a long time after me.
Yeah,
but I was there down Apney longer than most of them. Sometimes you had to stay overnight, and there were no facilities for women at all.
Nothing.
And and that was very daunting. It was scary. You'd be the only woman on the whole field, and the Germans were still around when we were there.
It took the Queen 54 years to recognise us before we were invited to
Did
Buckingham
you go
Palace.
to Buckingham Palace?
I went, yes.
And I did.
Yeah. Rita, I met Rita then, and she was in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I remember that.
We were talking, and her grandchildren came round and said, "Is that true what Grandma said, that you and her were missing in France?" So I said, "Yes."
Oh.
Yes, I said,
But they
we
weren't
were.
in France at all, were you?
No, we were in Belgium, weren't we? Oh, that was a day that was...
The Flying Nightingales' job was to keep patients alive until they got to Britain. The young women had little in the way of medical equipment, and sometimes the injuries were horrific.
That one with the face blown away, that I can see that man all my life. And he wanted to drink and he didn't have a mouth to have a drink. I had to give him morphia because he kept tearing at his dressing. You know, you would be surprised, some of the soldiers were terrified.
Some of them were crying, just like babies.
It was very traumatic.
It's all right,
you know.
it's all right, it's all right. We're going back home now. I used to say, we're going back home now.
The Flying Nightingales flew with male aircrew, but were treated rather differently at the time.
We weren't classed as aircrew, and when we came down, we weren't allowed to have aircrew breakfast, were we? Bacon and egg. We had just to have all was in the mess hall, didn't we?
How did that make you feel, knowing there was that distinction?
Annoyed.
Annoyed, really, because we were doing the same job as them, but we just weren't treated.
We were taking the same risks.
Same risks as them. We
were getting shot at just the same, weren't we?
Elsie's flight log tells the story of those hazardous journeys by Dakota. Was under shell fire, shrapnel through window.
And they're for walking patients.
We had some straps to hang on to, didn't we?
Yeah, small. Isn't it? This one's my mate. Now then.
Unlike the Land Girls or the Wrens, the story of the Flying Nightingales has largely been forgotten. But they brought 100,000 severely wounded servicemen back from Europe. And last year, their contribution was finally given public recognition. Are you pleased that the Flying Nightingales have finally been recognised?
Oh yes,
Yes,
overjoyed.
yes.
Overjoyed that we are.
Oh,
Stay to tell the tale. And for those that's gone before.
We did blaze a trail, didn't we?
We blazed the trail for those to come.
Smile! They're talking about us.